All right, to our audience, welcome to episode two, unofficially episode two of Josh's and myself. We made our own show, and now we're this is our unofficial official second episode. We had some issues, and so we're just waiting for Josh to jump on in, and then we'll get rolling. I think he's coming in. There we go.
Dan, how we doing?
We're lit. We're surviving.
Yes, sir. Too
We're-
bad we couldn't get the last episode up, but
Yeah.
technical difficulties, those happen. So, what are you gonna do, right?
Are we gonna go sideways again?
Yeah, I'm gonna. I just can't.
Okay, I'll go up. I'll go
Yeah.
up this way then.
I don't got-
whatever. I'll go sideways. Whatever.
Yeah, I got.
Oh,
wires,
you
so.
got. I'm charging now.
See, I have wireless headphones, but I don't want to look goofy in front of everybody. So,
See, I'm just happy because I finally got my Rizzo jersey in the mail today. I have been trying to search for them for
Yeah.
3 weeks. This was well, it's not even 3 weeks. It was like 3 months. I was trying to find them on Amazon,
yeah.
but they sent me a youth size.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really upset about that.
I'm trying to Patrick Kane jerseys. I got Jonathan Tays one. It's getting a little small. I mean, I'm like, I gotta get a Patrick Kane one because
I have a Kane one.
Yeah, I want the Adidas one. It's like $225, but right now they're selling it at Dick's for like $168. So might be a
Jeez,
move.
that's a huge drop. Is that the authentic one?
Yeah, the Adidas one like they wear on the ice. Yeah,
Smart.
I'm not trying to go like baseball jerseys. You can get away with like the replica ones because everyone wears those, but like the hockey ones, you can tell. Like
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I just bought the separate patches that you wear on the left and the right sides. Like
Okay.
I have a Chris Bryant one. It's one from the World Series. I just bought the Walking Sea Bear logo, patched it on the left shoulder.
Nice.
I'm a genius. All right, enough talking about us.
So to start, we're gonna take it in a direction we really haven't took it in. ND basketball, baby.
Yeah, this
First
is the
of all,
first time we're focusing in on school sports for once.
yeah, I mean, it was, that and football and soccer really took the school year by storm this year. They really
Oh
were.
yeah,
They really were. And we all knew baseball was going to have a really good year, but right now, it's on hold. So with ND basketball, when I was a freshman, we were, I want to say we were 26-5.
yeah, that
20
sounds accurate. Was
Yeah.
that the 16-17 season?
Yeah, so Jamero Stritzel's their senior year. And 26-6 actually. That was the final record. That was the last time, besides this year, we had won a regional title, and then lost in sectional semis to Waukegan at Waukegan, which that was hard. And then kind of the next year, with Coach Les retiring and Coach Clancy stepping in for the first time, and losing 7 seniors, and kind of just having to, kind of reboot, just get back to Notre Dame's basketball identity. So it didn't look like Notre Dame basketball too much that first year, but don't let that even think about, that's like your mindset, ND basketball, because last year they turned it around. They went from 14-16 my sophomore year, losing to Evanston in the regional title game, to going 19-12 my junior year. And again, losing to Evanston in the regional title game, that time at Evanston. But what a turnaround this year.
What a turn.
I think
Oh, man.
I think we knew we were going to be good. Like, at practices, I'd talk with coaches and stuff. And we would just tell each other, we knew it was going to be good this year. But we had no idea that
It was going to be like
it,
this.
it was definitely a 100% possibility that it was possible to do it. But when it really started happening, it was kind of like, whoa, like this is happening.
Yeah, once it really started getting going, like once the wheels started turning, and especially when ND beat Bogan without Sales playing, that's when
Yeah.
you really realize that this is a huge threat in state.
Yes, and I say one of my favorite games of the year. I still stick with it, hands down. I really think DePaul was my favorite game, even though it was only our 4th game of the season. I think that that game, I tell the coaches sometimes, we were driving to games and we talk about what our favorite game was. I say DePaul, and they'd kind of be curious because they're thinking, oh, wouldn't Bogan or Morgan Park be, your favorites? Morgan Park's my second favorite. But the thing with DePaul was I thought that really set the tone for our season. I feel like with that game, having lost to DePaul in the so-called game to go to the championship the past 2 years, because you play three teams at Battle of the Bridge. There's the Lane side of the bracket and the DePaul side. My sophomore and junior year, we were on the DePaul side of the bracket and lost to DePaul 2 years in a row in the game going to get to the title game. So we'd always end up in the third place game. My freshman year, we won. We won the tournament. But this year, I mean, it just all came together. DePaul had a very outstanding team, and we were extraordinary. And we went into their place, played them hard, and defended everything well. Scored at will at some points. Louis dunking over that one kid and getting the and one. It's it was just so much fun to watch at that point. And that I was taking pictures with the trophy cup in the locker room, and I was just thinking this is going to be one hell of a season because DePaul was a very good team at that time. They were a top 10 team along with us. We were ranked 7 to start the season, but people were projecting us to finish top 5 in the beginning of the year, even before those rankings. And DePaul, I think, was a 10 or 11. So it was a good game, especially on their home court. So you kind of, give them a little bit of advantage. But, to start the season, we played Jones and Lakeview at Lane, and that was, everybody got their minutes and everybody was scoring. And the Lane game was kind of our first test of adversity. Nothing too hard because they weren't like a DePaul, but still, I think that game gave you great prep for the DePaul game because they were going to bring a crowd that night. We brought a crowd,
Oh yeah.
and I think that just started the season off very well. And then you work your way into the season. You have a dominant win against Waukegan, tough loss to Evanston, which helped us grew. And then Anthony was hurt, and we beat Marian Catholic on our home court. Which was a huge win, a big statement win. That's one of the teams, them and Bennett. If you can beat both of them in a season, it's not a guaranteed conference title, but can you elaborate on that really quickly?
Yeah, I mean, you look at everything, and especially with what you were bringing up with the Lane game, giving that prep for DePaul, and yeah, and like you said, I mean, that was a huge test coming, especially going into that DePaul game because Lane's notorious, and I shouldn't say notorious, but they're known for bringing their crowds out to that.
And they did, yeah.
Yeah, being a school with 5,000 people, I mean, that was a school that I was considering going into high school, and I knew that going in that they did that a lot. And you think about it, especially with their football games, they're packing the stadium every Friday. I mean,
even if they're not that great, they still pack it. Yeah.
And that's how every school should be like that. But that game, 62-42 win, huge. It was huge towards getting to DePaul because you're already playing in front of a home crowd. You're already on a road. You played your neutral games already. Now you're getting your first test, towards getting into DePaul. And Lane they were okay. They weren't they weren't great, but they were okay. But having that kind of atmosphere is big, especially going into that kind of game with DePaul, where you said they were ranked 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And you have that kind of crowd there. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, and I think, as we went into our season, we came up against really big name players. Morgan Parks, Adam Miller, Marcus Watson, Brandon Weston. I could go on and on about that team. And then Ahmad Bynum for Simeon, Antoine Blackston, and Kenyon Davis on Bogan. And
Bryce Hopkins
for Fenwick, along with Trey Pettigrew. I mean,
that was a good duo.
Connor Cochero for St. Viator. You can just go on and on and on throughout the whole season of who we faced. And I thought Ty Johnson, Lance Mosley was a really good duo to kind of get us prepped for that. Lance Mosley didn't have his best game that night. But Ty Johnson, I mean, going 12 for 13 at the free throw line, 36 points, you got to give him credit for that, and he was making us work. So I thought that was a great test for adversity and a great way to get us ready for the season. But moving into it, five losses this year. Evanston, which was, that was a tough loss for us. We
Yeah,
competed hard,
that was a tough one.
and then the Loyola game, that was really hard to. That's a neighborhood rivalry,
Oof.
and it was tough not to have Anthony for that one. But the guys worked really hard as best as they could to, prepare themselves for that game and put them in the situation to win. 34-31, really close game, came down to the wire, and I remember coach in the locker room. He wrote our record up on the board, and I think we were 7-2 at that point. He said, we're less than 48 hours away from Bogan, and he just told us. He said, you got an opportunity Sunday against the best team in the state. Because at that time, Bogan was ranked number 1 before Curie. And he told us we have an opportunity and got to take advantage of it. And I don't know, just walking into that game and just the bus ride, I just had good feelings. It was tough to see the Bears lose to the Packers on the bus ride down.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that was that day.
That ruined their playoff hopes. But aside of that, I mean, I had trouble sleeping the night before. It was super exciting because that was kind of the first time in my experience with the team that we played a top team in the state. And we took them by storm, started off 22-12 up, kind of gave it up in the fourth, down by 8. And then, it was some lucky calls go our way. The big foul at the end, Lou hit the big free throws. Jason and Troy stepped up big time, and we made history. And then we went on, 15 game winning streak, I think. Because
I'll count it up for you.
$10 is 14. $10 is 14.
I am not taking that bet.
15 including the Bogan
6,
game.
7,
15
8,
including
9,
Bogan.
10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, 14.
Yeah. So
I'm not sending you $10.
And then tough loss to Simeon. And, walking into the Simeon game, coach told us that it's going to be a lot like a sectional environment. And it was. You kind of could feel it. That was a tough one to lose. We had a really tough week. First of all, beating Morgan Park, which that takes a lot of energy out of you.
Yeah.
And then we had to go all the way to Woodstock to play Marion Central that Friday and then come back and play Simeon. So it was a huge week. And then the tough loss to Bennett on Valentine's Day. That was – and then Curie. But when we all had a team meeting, I think it was before the sectional game against Deerfield, and there was a coach, a inspirational speaker or something. He came and talked with us, and we were talking about what our best games were for that year. A lot of guys said Morgan Park, a lot said Bogan, and one of our guys made a good point of saying Curie, and I totally agree. I think it was Anthony that said that. He said Curie was our best game, and I can agree with that because that brought out the best in the team. Pats was a pretty hyped environment, but Curie, that was unbelievable to watch. Just competing with a top 20 team in the nation like that. And it brought out the best in us, and I think it prepared us to really make a deep run into the playoffs. Too bad. We won all the games we could, and I think that game prepared us. But overall, you look at the season and finishing 29-5, winning Thanksgiving tournament, beating an undefeated Glenbrook South team with Don Martinelli, who dropped 50 points earlier that season, to win the Christmas title, beating teams like Bogan, Morgan Park, Fenwick, tying for getting a share of the conference title with Marion Catholic, finishing 8-1 there, only lost to Bennett. The list goes on and on. Regional title and breaking the school record for wins. It was a great year, and we were set up for great success in the playoffs. And I do believe, I don't know about you, but I think you do, that we were probably going to win the 3A title.
Yeah, and not to throw a little bit of a wrench in there, but the path getting to state was definitely going to be interesting. You had St. Viator in the sectional game, and then more than likely you were going to play Fenwick at Northwestern for super sectionals, and then you get to state, and then you look throughout the bracket. I had read I forgot. I think it was Michael Bryan
He said
who wrote
we would lose.
Yeah, to Peoria. But you look at everything from 3A. I'm gonna look through like our comp. Wait a second. our our rank. Wait, I
There.
think there
Three.
we go. I mean, you look through 3A, and I mean, you have great teams up and down the board. uh, Bogan, Peoria, ND, sure. Morgan Park, Lincoln, East St. Louis,
DePaul.
yeah, DePaul, Bennett was up there too. Fenwick, Hinsdale South.
There you go.
I mean, this is a very formidable 3A, and
Hmm.
that's not putting anything to the 4A teams such as Curry, who had a amazing season overall, but and Loyola, sure, we'll throw them in there too. But you look at that, and that's a great group to be in with those
Yeah.
schools, especially like Bogan, Morgan Park, Peoria, DePaul, Fenwick. I mean, you can keep going on, and you think about it going into the playoffs, and like there's like several teams that are very deservedly so to be able to win 3A, and
Yeah.
like obviously we obviously think that
We were
ND
one of
would.
them. Yeah.
We were one of them, and it's pretty obvious. We weren't the only ones thinking that. It was
Hmm.
everyone throughout the state, and you even go like downstate writers, like down in Peoria, that were consistently covering this. Like they were thinking that too. Now they're not just saying that bias because their schools more than their local school is probably going to get there, but you also got to think about like yeah, you're a huge power 3 that's being recognized throughout the country and D'Amico, Lesman, and Sales. That's not putting anything away to how great Bergstrom and Murphy did this year and
Yeah.
everyone else.
Hmm.
But you think about this, that was the group that kind of brought all the attention to the school. And again, that's not throwing away what anyone else did. I mean, you look up and down the roster. Everyone had a spectacular season.
Yeah. I mean, you can go. I mean, first of all, the starting five, outstanding a job. The mixing together, and then you talk about the role guys, especially the juice. The juice. Gavin, Jared, Pritt, Kyle, Vince. All those guys were the juice. The guys that got. They were like 6-man minutes with like Mac and Sonny and Frank. It was just a great group overall that everyone knew their role and everyone contributed 110% to their role, whether you were playing all 32 minutes or 2 or 1 of those minutes. Everyone, hands on deck, they gave it their all, and that's why the season was so spectacular for us. It was everyone knew their role, gave it their all, and the coaches did a great job this year. They worked with everybody, and the group was just great. I mean, great to work with overall. I mean, all the
Yeah.
guys. Um, shout out to Colin. Colin on the bench mob too. Can't forget him.
Yeah, the bench mob really just they that again doesn't take away from the starters, but the bench mob. I mean, they tied everything together. They
Yeah,
made it they meshed it all up. But it's going to be interesting to see how this works next year with with many of the bench mob guys becoming seniors. I mean, you look like 99% sure Gavin's a junior right now, right? Gutierrez.
he's gonna be a senior next year.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Jake, Colin,
Oh, Jake
all
too.
gonna
Shout out to Jake.
yeah,
Yeah,
gonna be seniors, and then Frank. I mean, I have high hopes for him next year. I think he's gonna be really good next year.
yeah.
Um, I think Mac too gonna have
Mac and Sonny. Yeah,
Mac and Sonny are gonna have some big roles next year. I mean, and you think about it, like filling the holes of Jimmy and Jason are gonna be tough to fill,
yeah,
and that because they're unique guys, and the way that they're able to move about the court and they're able to perform, I mean, it's hard to try and fix that. Like, be able to put someone in their shoes. And Kyle and Vince and Brian all had great years too with the time that they were able to get out there. But
hmm,
I think it is going to be tough to try and fill the holes that the seniors leave with
yeah.
the current juniors, Mac, Sonny, and whoever comes up to um, fill up the rest of the roster.
Hmm.
This is going to be an interesting team this year.
Yeah, I think everyone's capable of filling in the roles. It's going to be obviously tough for them to lose, but I think knowing the guys that got a lot, especially the guys that got a lot of minutes, like the starters and the bench guys on sophomore team, they had a really good year. We had 2 of them two or three of them practicing this year. Anthony, Jason, James practiced with varsity for playoffs. We brought, had them come to the practices. And I think they'll do a great job of stepping in. And you don't know who you're getting. You don't know who you're getting next year. You don't know if we're going to
Right.
get another big transfer and then have like a Golden State Warriors starting five. You don't know what's in store.
No, you really don't. I mean, you look at it. I mean, once Louis came in, I mean, that just like it changed the complexity of how this roster is going to shape
Yeah.
up, and it just like it threw a golden wrench in, if you
Hmm.
want to put it in that metaphorical sense. But you're right. Like you don't know what's going to happen with the transfers, and it's yeah, if someone decides to come in, that's like an absolute beast. Like
Hmm.
that can come up for a super team.
And I know like a lot of people were coming up to me in the summer and they were kind of questioning like, how is it going to go? All three of them are big scores and everything. And I was just telling them, I say they mesh really well together. They work well. When one guy's struggling, the other two pick them up. Or if two of them are struggling, one will pick them up. And if all three are struggling, the other two start. Everyone will pick each other up. There's no loss if someone's not having a good game because they'll find a way. They'll find areas in their game to help the team succeed. So yeah. And as for how far we could have gone, I still say, I mean, we should have won state. You look at our competition. I say you beat St. Viator. That's
Yeah.
yeah. And then honestly, I'm gonna give credit to St. Ignatius here. I say they do beat Fenwick. I say they do beat
Mm.
Fenwick on their home court. If they beat DePaul, they definitely could beat Fenwick. And I say we play them in the super sectionals, and I say we manhandle them. We take care of the business. And then obviously the question comes, which Notre Dame wins? I say we can handle Peoria and Notre Dame. I've never seen them play. I've never really watched them,
Me neither.
but I feel like with the style of basketball we play, and we're a very quick up and down team. We've learned to pay. We've played slow pace against teams like we did in the beginning of the year against like Lakeview and Jones, but we've had to play fast pace against like DePaul and Bogan, Borkin Park, Simeon. We've played any pace imaginable, so I feel like we can handle that. I say we do handle them, and then we probably play Bogan in the title game, and if we could beat them without Anthony in the regular season by two, who says you can't do it with him? Because when he's on the court, I mean, it's a bigger threat. So I say we take it.
Yeah. I mean there's not much to try and go against what you're saying. I mean, I think that I do think that for the Ignatius sectional that Ignatius does run out of steam
Okay,
after their win. I don't remember who they played in their
DePaul,
semifinals. DePaul.
DePaul.
After DePaul, I think they would run out. They ran out. I think they would run out a bit of steam. Because you're going against like two really good teams, and Ignatius like it doesn't take away from what they did this year. They had a decent year, but it wasn't a Notre Dame year, or it wasn't like a Fenwick year where they were consistently playing in these big games and getting that big time attention, or like a Bogan. Like
Yeah.
they didn't have that kind of season. I do think that they probably would have ran out
Hmm.
of gas for the sectional title. Fenwick would have taken it, and
Okay.
yeah, I think that things would have gotten pretty interesting for the super sectional against Fenwick. I do think they edge them out, and then I think really like this doesn't shade away from anyone going into state, but I do think it's a crapshoot at that point because everyone at that point in time they've been battle tested. They've for the most part they face the same like batch of competition within the rank, and I think it's yeah. I mean at that point it's whoever plays the hardest, sure whoever gets some of the more luckier calls, and whoever
Yeah.
outperforms the other.
Yeah. But without a doubt, Curie finished number one. Thornton finished two. Curie had two losses. One was an in-state loss. The other was an out-of-state loss. Thornton had one loss. And then there's us. We were ranked number
Yeah,
three.
we were three.
Yeah, we're three. So Michael O'Brien did think highly of us. Sadly, not highly enough to throw us in the state title mix. But we never got there, so you don't know what's right. But for
Yeah.
sure, thankful for this year. Couldn't have had a better senior year with the team. I loved it. Loved every experience of it. So grateful for it for sure.
Yeah, a lot of fun to cover this.
Yeah. Moving on.
Let's move on.
Next one, we will be talking about, well, folks, last time we were talking, GarPax was halfway gone. We got rid of Pax, but we still had Gar. But folks,
Gar's
it's
gone.
it's over. It's over. The man who was ruining the Chicago Bulls has been relieved of his duties, and Paxton's been long gone. And right now, the vice president of the operations, all how all that goes. I can't say his name. It
Arturas
is
Karnisovas.
Arturas Karnisovas. So he's that's a tongue twister. Uh,
Oh,
so right now, according to NBC Sports, he has three candidates lined up to take the GM position. Now, keep in mind, all three of these guys are assistants. They are
two of them
assistant
are.
GMs.
Two of them are.
Two of them are?
Two of them are. The third guy is, I think he's like president of player development or something
Okay.
like that.
So the first is Mark Eversley of the 76ers, and you kind of have in mind that he's definitely a viable candidate because trust the process. We're still waiting to see if the Sixers can finally bring home a chip, but bringing in Embiid, and Simmons, Fultz was a bust. Redick, having Jimmy Butler for that spurt, Tobias Harris, it really worked out for them. Bringing in Al Horford this summer, a great veteran guy to help maybe Embiid grow a little bit, maybe with his like offense and stuff. So that's a very good option without a doubt. Then you have Mark Hughes of the Clippers. Uh, that's a fantastic option.
Yeah,
If we're,
yeah. You just one glance at that roster and you're thinking, wow. I
I
mean,
mean,
that's all you the player development on the Clippers has been. I mean, yeah, they pushed themselves back into like spotlight this year, but like you look at the years coming up to it. I mean, they were an up and coming basketball team before they brought in Leonard and George. Like and now they're really really good.
yeah, for sure. I think you look at the Lob City era where it was Chris Paul, Jamal Crawford, guys like maybe Caron Butler, Matt Barnes in that small forward spot, and then or Austin Rivers for a little bit, and then you bring in Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. So your big three was Paul, Griffin, Jordan. I think the one issue there was you didn't have an elite scorer. You had really good assist guy who could put up some decent numbers, and Chris Paul assists off the board, scoring not the greatest, but it was very good indeed. Don't let anyone downplay it. Griffin and Jordan, no one's getting in the paint. And if you want to absolutely end up on a poster hanging in your kid's room, get out of the way because Jordan and Griffin would definitely do it to you. But I definitely think, post Lob City era, getting Leonard, getting George, getting Montrezl Harrell, Pat Beverly, I think that is great for the team. They have somewhat of the same identity, I guess you could say. Like, the passing and the hype guy, Pat Beverly kind of could take place for Chris Paul. Guys like Harrell, and I don't know who their big man is off the top of my head. That might,
remember either.
yeah, I'm not too familiar with the Clippers lineup, but you look at that, and then obviously Leonard and George. If Leonard's not performing too well, George can definitely take over. If George isn't taking too well, Leonard can take over. If both of them are playing well, get out of the way. They're gonna, do their thing. We saw what Kawhi was able to do pretty much with his own show last year, and Paul George. I mean, he took Indiana pretty far to the Eastern Conference Finals a couple times against the LeBron James era in Miami. So definitely, you see what the Clippers have done. Even Mark Hughes, I don't care that he's the assistant; he still had a say in that. So I say that's a very good option. And then the one I'm a little questionable about is Matt Lloyd of the Orlando Magic. You want to get a take on that?
Yeah, I mean that I think that's the player development guy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a bad idea because considering the fact that I mean the Magic they're not in the same range as some of the big dogs, but I mean player development there in Orlando has just I mean it's been okay because they've had some struggles and I don't know. I think some of it too of why he's a bigger candidate is what Arturas sees in him. And I think some of that is because of like was a GM at some point and he worked with player development guys and he's obviously got to go scout. He probably ran into um, whoever you said. Now I can't remember his name. The third guy, the Magic guy,
Oh, Matt Wood.
Matt Lloyd. Yeah. So you think about it, like the Magic haven't had the best success in the world. They're
Yeah.
not a Lakers. They're not a Clippers. They're not a Bucks.
Milwaukee, yeah.
They're
Toronto.
they're not they're not at that level. But you also have to think about what is Arturis really looking for in a GM? Like, is he looking for a kind of guy that has taken that's from a team that has had success, or is he kind of looking for more of like a player development guy, which I think is why he's still keeping Matt Lloyd in the mix, which I guess
Hmm.
that kind of makes sense. Like, true, you don't want to just like poach guys from the best teams, but you also want to like look at someone like, some of the lower guys too. But you also have to think about like what is he trying to prioritize in this GM search?
Yeah. I mean, there's two takes you could get on this. You could get someone like Jerry West who brings in your big name guys. Like he could bring in maybe Steph, LeBron. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but just the idea. Bringing in guys like Steph, AD, LeBron, Russ, Harden. Just that you have that mentality. You bring in a couple guys like that, and then you keep your core guys like Levine or Carter or whatever. Or you kind of take it as a miracle on ice approach and try to
Yeah,
turn your guys into superstars to be the best of the best, and that's possible. That's more of a player development type way
yeah,
to deal with it. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I definitely say your best guy, right? I mean, to look at is obviously Mark Hughes for sure. Just looking what he did in LA, and there's no underestimate. I don't care that the Lob City team never made it past the second round. That's still a very good team that could, whenever you're talking West contenders. Back then, if you're talking 2010 to 2014 in that era, your main contenders obviously were the Spurs. You still had Duncan, Ginobili, Parker. Leonard was getting going, and he won Finals MVP. You had the Spurs. Lakers were going down, and you also had. I mean, the Clippers were always in the conversation too, and until James Harden left OKC, they were in the conversation as well. So in that mix, the Clippers every year were set up to do something. They just weren't able
yeah,
to execute it. It's not Mark Hughes' fault necessarily. Maybe he could have had a better bench, or there's always something you can do better. But at that point, it's kind of on the players. If you have that good of a team, you got to be able to put yourself together. So don't automatically blame Mark Hughes. So I'm saying he put them in a spot to win. They just didn't execute. So Mark
yeah,
Hughes definitely is a guy you want to watch out for. And I'll throw it out there. That's what I want personally. So,
yeah. I'm also interested to see about like what Arturis is going to end up doing with Jim Boylan. I want to like
yeah,
read off this statement Jim Boylan
go
gave
for it.
yesterday. All right, here we go. I want to welcome Arturis to the Chicago Bulls. He has a wealth of experience as a player and executive and a strong reputation within the basketball community. I commend Jerry and Michael for bringing Arturis on board. I'm thankful for the support that John and Gar provided me and my staff when I became our head coach. Their commitment and belief in our team played a key role in helping me establish a foundation for how I want to coach our team. I cannot overstate how much I appreciate that. I wish them and their families nothing but the best.
Oh, he knows he's going. He
Uh,
knows he's going.
I think he knows that he's going, but Arturis had an interview today with Mullion on the Mullion Hoff show this morning. It did. They asked him about that, but he didn't really give a clear answer about that, which I guess kind of makes sense because you don't want to like give away his job security on local radio, but you also have to think about like he's more than likely gone. But
Yeah.
Jim Boylan, I have to ask. No one asked for you to do this. This was
Mm-hmm.
strictly on you. But this almost seems like you're a homeless man on the street trying to beg for money.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like at this point he's trying to beg for his job because he knows he's as good as burnt toast.
Yeah. Honestly,
He's
he's as good as Humpty Dumpty. That's for sure.
You got that right. He's not. He's done. And the only way I can see Arturis keeping him on board at this point right now is if the season resumes. if the
Okay.
regular season resumes, just so we can see like how bad is Jim Boylan. Like,
Hmm.
let's be honest, because
Yeah.
he's not that good. He's not that good at what he does. But if the season doesn't resume, then sure, start searching around. But you also have to think about like, do you send him to coach the summer league or something like that?
Yeah.
Maybe figure out how he coaches those guys. I
Or
mean,
put him back at assistant or something.
or yeah, put him back at assistant. I mean, there's a couple different paths that you can potentially go with this,
Hmm.
but I don't see a scenario where Jim Boylan stays the head coach of the Bulls. No,
Nor do I see it, nor do I want to see it.
no.
And some good options. Now, this is my source is Clutch Points, so don't 100% get me on this. Dave Yeager, the Sacramento Kings coach, that's a little
Mm,
iffy.
mm.
Becky Hammon, she wants to be the NBA's first female coach, and she's been working with Greg Popovich. I see that as a viable option.
Yeah, can I jump in on that for a second?
Hmm.
So we talked about this a little bit in our last one, like how Arturis and the Bulls want to promote diversity. I mean, that could help. That could really help the brand of the Bulls right now. Which I mean, it isn't spectacular. Bringing Arturis on helps, but
Yeah.
if they uh hire Becky, whatever her last name was,
Becky Hammon.
Becky Hammond. If they hire her, I mean that's huge for the Bulls. I mean, and that brings like a historic mark
Oh
to the
yeah.
franchise because you're hiring the first NBA female head coach
Hmm.
in the sports history. I mean, that would
Yeah.
be huge if they
Yeah.
did that.
Bring something back, something positive back to Chicago basketball, because the last thing we had that was very, very desirable was MVP Derrick Rose. So I think, and when you're under the wing of Greg Popovich, it's kind of like guys coming out of Andy Reid's system. Um, Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy.
Oh
Whoa,
God, Doug Peterson. I could go on. I could go on and on about. Uh,
the Andy Reid system.
yeah, it's just like that, and there's certainly nothing wrong with the Greg Popovich system. I don't get how there could be anything wrong with that system, because that
Oh,
man is one of the best coaches in NBA history. He's up there, with guys like Phil Jackson for sure. Pat. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. The Heat general manager. I am complete.
oh God,
Pat.
you're asking me this.
Yeah,
All right, fine.
we
I'm
gotta
going on
look
the
it up.
internet.
But
Yes, we're going on
anyways,
the internet.
Pat Riley. Pat Riley.
Dang it.
So it's kind of like that. Like, you can rank him up there with some of the best coaches of all time. So I say, like, because here for example is Popovich's former associates that have turned to be good coaches. Mike Budenholzer, Bucks, very
Mm.
good. Steve Kerr,
Yeah.
don't have to say much. Mike D'Antoni, Alvin Gentry with the Pelicans, and Quinn Snyder, just to name a few. The Jazz coach. That is just to name a few. It's like the Andy Reid system. So
Riley.
yeah, he answered it for us.
Thank you, Zach.
Yes, shout out. And then obviously people have been considering it. They want the Tom Thibodeau reunion. The
I
one
don't know
reason,
about that.
the one reason I do not see this working, if you watched, especially the year they went to play the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, Rose's MVP year, the starters, he worked them vigorously. The only one that maybe got a little bit of slack was Keith Bogans. But if you were watching a game, Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Carlos Boozer, Luol Deng were on there constantly. They were playing Duncan Keith minutes like from the Stanley Cup Finals on that court.
Yeah, that was
You
just child labor.
And if Derrick Rose wasn't in, CJ Watson was in, you had the other four starters. There were always 3 or 4 starters, and it was very rare that, unless they were winning at the end of the game. Kyle Korver would often step in, CJ Watson, Ronnie Brewer, Taj Gibson. The bench was good, but he would work those starters so vigorously. That's why they were always getting injured. So some people say that he might be able to bring them back. The 62-win season that he had, Rose's MVP year, he got Rose to be the youngest MVP. But they can't. I don't think this Bulls lineup can handle that kind of rigorous.
The
Yeah,
Thibodeau
yeah.
rigorous.
It's tough stuff. When you sign up to play for Thibodeau, or when you sign a contract to play for him, you need to know that you got to be in the best of shape. because he is going to work you so vigorously that if your body's not in shape, it's going to get injured. So some people say he might be able to revive Chicago.
I don't
Don't keep
know.
your hopes up. One that I really don't
I
agree.
do like Becky though. Becky Rowland or whatever her last name is.
Hammond,
Hammond. Jeez, I'm never gonna get names. But
you're
I
good.
do, yeah, kind of backing up on what the point I made earlier. I mean, it's not a bad hire at all, and it's going to bring you more attention to the city, and I think to the city and to the team, and I think that's kind of what they're looking for, and it'll
Yeah,
help boost the product if you're trying to look at it from a business standpoint too.
for sure.
And you also have to, if you do decide to do this, you also have to make sure that it's not a promotional geek. Like
No.
she's for real. Like yeah, you have to make sure of that too.
Yeah, you can't just do it just because, oh, it's the first female coach and we want publicity. No, you got to be trusted. You got to trust her. Well, first she's got to trust the Bulls that they aren't going to do anything. They're not going to
Right.
try and take advantage of the situation. You got to make sure she knows what she's doing. And if you're under Popovich, you got to be pretty convinced that she knows what she's doing. So I think if they use the situation right, they bring in the right coach. I think she'd make a good coach. The GMs look, if they can get the GM, I prefer the Clippers GM. And if,
Yeah.
the way it's looking with, I'm not going to say his name because I'm going to butcher it.
Arturas Karnisovas.
Yeah, if you bring in that and then you start getting the right players, it's going to turn around soon. But one coach I do not agree with hiring is David Blatt, the old Cavs coach
No,
before Ty Lue. No,
no.
we're not even going to go there. We're not even going to go there.
Make me a bicycle clown.
So, yeah, we're not going to go there. So
All right.
that's what's up with the Bulls. So it's very interesting right now. So
Alrighty.
I'll let you take over the next topic. You're
All
really
right.
on it with this.
I am because that's all that pops up on my Bleacher Report feed. So yeah, the radical MLB plans. So it almost seems like at this point that the only viable options to go to Arizona. And you think about this, and so this was actually reported today. I can pull this up real quick.
Yeah.
But MLB has apparently they are going to be going into a case study for COVID, and they're going to be doing like 10,000 tests, something like that. I'm going to try and find the article, but I heard something earlier today that why? Like, why would you want to do this? And especially two White Sox guys. I don't know, Steve Cishek. Yeah, Steve Cishek was involved in that. And there was one other guy, don't remember. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to think about this like you're taking away tests from people who might need them, and you're potentially taking away PPE that you might need. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so so I'll read it off to you. This is from reported by Jeff Passan. So Stanford University, USC, and the Sports Medicine Research and Testing Laboratory are conducting the study, which Passan notes is unlikely to speed up the process of MLB ending its hiatus on team activities. So the goal of this study is to get a better sense of the virus's true infection rate by utilizing a nationwide sample. The speed with which MLB coordinated logistics and ensured participation of a wide number of people, including players, front office staff, concession workers, and others, made it the right choice for the study, according to doctors running on it. So I guess what they're trying to do with this is kind of get like the national scape of it. But you also have to consider the fact that they're trying to be the first sport back. Now, putting the UFC aside with Dana White's crazy ideas of going on a private island, that was the stupidest thing I've heard on the planet Earth. It makes no sense at all. But you have to think about this. Like, you're going to be in self-isolation potentially for 4 months. You're going to be playing in that heat. Like, I get that they're trying to come up with ideas to try and help with that. But one of the ideas that was leaked, if you're not playing, adhere to social distancing, go sit in the stands. Like, no, you can't do that. I've been to spring training parks in Arizona. There's no shade there whatsoever. No shade. There are no awnings. And I think that the only place that has awnings, I know Sloan Park has it for the Cubs. I think Salt River Field has it. And I think that's about it. Other than that, there's nowhere to go.
No, I'd almost just rather you start, planning to postpone the season and play the doubleheaders if necessary, because first of all, people are going to want the tickets for those games. First you have to think about, are fans going to be allowed, when the fans will be allowed back. Now, say the fans are allowed back right when they start playing in the ballparks and they have to do double headers. I say, first of all, if you can't have the fans, I say you just wait it out and start doing double headers back home. It's not worth it in Arizona. It really isn't, especially if you're talking about debating when to start the season. So say you're starting it in end of May, beginning of June, or mid-May. That's when the heat's probably it's going to be way worse than it is in February. And we've seen Jason Hayward get attacked by killer bees in the outfield in February.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. So I would almost rather have them do the doubleheaders if they need to at their own ballparks and back wherever they're from, and go from there. Even if it's empty stadium, don't try bringing people in. Don't even think about doing spring training parks, because it's not the same environment, and I don't think it's worth it to do that, in my opinion.
No, I mean, you have to think about this too. Like, they're trying to contain it like in all one area. It's like you don't have the outbreak. Is I get what they're trying to do here, because this happened in Japan where they started the season and they were able to resume the season, and then they had three guys test positive, and then they had to shut the whole thing down. I think what
Yeah,
they're trying to do is avoid that, but you also have to think of the fact that what's been reported is that they really don't want to get people into the stadiums until there's a vaccine, which we're about apparently a year away from.
oh
So you
great.
had, yeah, they were saying like September at one point, but now it's like, I guess we're waiting a year for this now. But
Yeah,
anyways, you have to think about this. Like, what if there's like an outbreak in a stadium? Like, what do you do then? I mean, then you're facing civil lawsuits. There's tremendous liabilities with all of this, and you have to be able to think about, like, is it really worth it? And I think at that point you really have to start thinking about playing in empty stadiums. Like, I read something earlier this morning that, and this was from a couple of years back when the Baltimore riots were happening and the Orioles and White Sox had played in an empty stadium. Like, the players there thought that was really, like, weird. Like, yeah, there were people out behind the right field fence on Utah Street, but they thought it was really, really bizarre that they were playing in an empty stadium. And it was a little bit different then, because like the city was on lockdown for a totally different reason. Like, you didn't have the video screens going, the music wasn't playing. I don't even think that the PA announcer was even there doing anything. But it was just, they thought it was so surreal. Like, is this really happening? But then you think about doing that for 4 months straight, not
yeah,
having anyone
that's
there, and then you're thinking of the possibility of neutral site World Series. Like,
hmm,
that just takes away from the tradition of the sport. Like,
yeah.
this isn't football.
No, now that's fun. Don't get me wrong, but that's been going on for 54 years.
54 years.
54 years. So uh, it works for that because it's been the case. But if you were to do NBA finals at neutral sites, like, no. Especially, what if you had a Boston Celtics LA Lakers final? You gonna put that thing in Oklahoma City or something? No, you wouldn't do that. You, the fans pretty much are half the reason games turn out the way they are. So it's a tough fantasy to even imagine. You know, we saw with the Sox and the Orioles playing at the empty stadium, but I'd almost rather have that than doing empty stadium in spring training, because the heat's just going to be 10 times worse.
I mean, you can always go to Miami. The Marlins never have any fans anyway.
Yeah, that's for sure. Them, Tampa Bay.
I mean, okay,
Tampa Bay's good and they don't get anybody, but that stadium's bad.
you you actually know it's because of the location of it. The location of it's horrible. There's no parking lots anywhere. You can't
Yeah,
get there by public transport. The stadium is not great. You're right about that. I've been there once before. That's not the greatest. But okay, now how about this? Now, I know this is a little bit off topic, but I just want to put this out there. When the Rays played the Astros in the playoffs last year, they still had parts of the seating area tarped off. And yeah, they had 33,000 people there, but you're still tarping it off. It's a playoff game. Come on. Like, I know you're getting the horrible time slot, but still, like,
yeah.
come on. But that's besides the point. But you also have to remember the fact that, yeah, they're trying to make this like a healing process for the country. But at this point, if they're saying that a vaccine's months away, we're not going to be out of this 4 months. And it's hard to say
Yeah.
that, but it's hard to see. Like, I even struggle at this point seeing football returning in September. I don't even see
Mm.
the. I don't. It's possible, but it's hard to see that when you're learning that a vaccine is like a year away and you're not potentially going to get it until maybe the end of this calendar year or into 2021. Like, that's kind of a scary thought to realize. And
Hmm.
like, you also have to think about that for like GMs of the NFL. Like, do you trade all your picks away and get better picks for next year? Like, that's something else I heard today, that like, what do you do about the draft? Like, because that's next week. But that's again getting off topic. But they're in a super tough situation with this, and the fact that most of the sports money is made off of attendance. Like, you don't see the amount of people watching a baseball game than the amount of people you see watching a football game. Like, you just don't see that. But I mean, they're in a super tough spot. But I just don't see cardboard and mannequins and robots being viable fans this year.
No,
If any of you get that reference,
it's tough, but
that's just
eh,
reality.
it's our situation right now. You can't go pushing. You can't
Or we
go
can
pushing it.
Or we can just head on over to Taiwan. I mean, that's one idea that they've been thinking about, like going to Asia and playing the season in Asia.
Yeah, but then you face the same problem. You know, how you going to get 30 teams in so many
Exactly.
ballparks? Yeah. So,
I mean, there's a lot they got to think about.
yeah.
All right.
Okay, last one. So
Wait,
I
yeah,
was on
hold up.
maybe.
Before you start, we're gonna be hitting the hour mark soon. I think in about 10-ish minutes. So
Let's
if
hang it up.
so, we're gonna hang it up now and then get to our final topic when we come back. So we're gonna take like a 30-second break.
Second
Sure.
break. Yeah.
It's
I
not even going to be 30 seconds. All right. We'll be right back. And just as fast as we left, we are back. We were getting close to the time limit because this app limits live videos to an hour, and we're really good at having shows go over an hour. So we're just going to cut it here. We cut it back on our last part, but now we're going to start our second segment. But we have one more topic to go. Hopefully that only takes like 20-ish minutes. But once Josh comes back, then we'll discuss that. But I'm not going to say what that is because it's actually pretty interesting. So for those of you watching, we are going to have a new show premiering tonight. Matt McMaster, senior class president, has started his own show with called McMaster and the Mic. That's going to be airing on our YouTube page later today at 9 o'clock. It's really good. McMaster knows what he's talking about. So I would watch the opportunity, and we should be getting Josh in here hopefully in a minute. But there we go.
There it is.
Okay. So
So
let's
I,
continue.
s-
Oh, look
yeah,
at that. Look what you're wearing. You pulled the headphones
yeah.
off.
My phone was dying and there's no spot to put it, so the earbuds. So I had to go to
Smart,
these.
smart
So
man.
the last topic, I saw this on Instagram and it really it brought caught my attention. It's the caption was, "Which would you have rather seen happen?" And it's Derrick Rose never get injured, which for a Chicago fan, especially like me, that's Um, the trade for Chris Paul to the Lakers does not get vetoed by David Stern. So Chris Paul ends up playing with Kobe in like 08, 09. So Chris Paul pretty much gets a ring. The big three in OKC, Harden, Westbrook, Durant never break up. or we get to see Kobe and LeBron face off in the finals. So I say, let's talk about it and then we'll give our opinions. So first of all, Derrick Rose never getting
Oh,
injured.
oh
You
man.
can go so many ways with that. You can talk about the free agents that possibly come in. A lot of theories said that the Bulls do win the title in the playoffs, in the year in the playoffs that he tears the ACL. A lot say he does lead them to a title. They win, and they eventually get Melo, and they bring in, forgot who they, I think they bring in Serge Ibaka or something like that. There's so many videos you can watch, but Melo, I think, definitely becomes an attraction at that point. And I think it was said they become a powerhouse and they win like 4 titles in the decade or something like that. So they end up being like your Golden State Warriors.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it like the dynasty that could have been. You brought up Carmelo Anthony, who was a Bull for about 5 minutes. But you think about it like Butler doesn't hurt himself. Would we have seen a turn back the clock to the 1990s? Like this was if you want to put it in this sense, a dynasty in the making.
Hmm.
And Rose was going to be the ringleader of all this. He was going to be the Michael Jordan of the 2010s and lead the Bulls to greatness once again.
Yep.
But then the injury happened, and it just started a downward spiral. And I think at that point, Tom Thibodeau just didn't help. Just worked the guys even harder because he didn't have Derrick Rose, and
You tried to bring in,
yeah, it just sent the team down, and they haven't really been able to recover it.
yeah, he tried bringing in Nate Robinson the year D Rose sat out. Nate Robinson did a good job, but it was not enough to get past Miami's big three. And then he brought in DJ Augustine, Mike Dunleavy, and they lost to the Wizards 4-1 that year. So they never really got back. They had a shot when they signed Pau Gasol, and Butler was very good, and Rose was starting to kind of get back to somewhat of a decent level of playing. But and maybe they're title contenders in that picture. But overall, if we still see that Derrick Rose from the 2010 season, 2010-11 season, and the parts of the season where he wasn't injured in the 2011-2012 season, that's scary for any team. That's a Russell Westbrook, a Russell Westbrook with a team with more depth going out and just absolutely wrecking teams. They swept the Miami Heat in his MVP year. They beat him 3 times, 2 in South Beach, 1 in Chicago, and that team could take it on anything if he doesn't get hurt. And you talk about the possibility of signing Carmelo Anthony, maybe, just maybe, getting LeBron James after he was done with Miami, because LeBron did kind of want to come here, along with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. All three were attracted to come here. They decided to form their own posse, though, in South Beach. So the options, and you talk about Kevin Love was a serious option at one time, and then he signed with Cleveland. It could have gone so many ways. I believe Carmelo's the main guy that comes with, but if he never gets hurt, I mean, you talk about multiple MVPs, multiple titles, probably multiple clinching of #1 seeds, division titles. You almost talk about a Blackhawks dynasty pretty much. You see something like that, maybe 3 titles in 6 years. Nothing like Golden State Warriors where you're absolutely dominating the play every night because they weren't that kind of team, but definitely something like the Blackhawks for sure.
No, easily, easily.
Um, and then the next idea was Chris Paul. If the trade wasn't vetoed from the Hornets to the Lakers, it was a three-way trade, but he would have ended up with Kobe. Uh, I mean, at that time, I believe it was 2008, 2009-ish. So ultimately, they probably do still end up winning the title. Uh, and Chris Paul obviously just widens the floor that much more to maybe make plays for Kobe or even do stuff himself. They still have Pau Gasol, Ron Artest at the time before he was Meta World Peace. they that duo could have been very dangerous. And Bryant, before Kobe tore his Achilles, I think 2011-ish, probably same time Derrick Rose got hurt.
That sounds right.
Chris Paul definitely could pick up some slack. Maybe not all of it, because when you tear your Achilles, like I said, Dominique Wilkins is the only guy to return from an Achilles injury fully himself or better from the previous time he stepped on the court. Still a debate if Kevin Durant can get that. But you talk about the possibility of Kobe not being the same as he was, which ended up, sadly being true, and whether Chris Paul can pick up that slack. They were still a playoff team, uh, 2010-11 season. I believe they were a playoff team. But once he got hurt, that team started tanking. You also talk about they probably had one of the worst super team attempts in the history of the game, bringing in Steve Nash, who is a very two-time MVP. Him and Kobe at the guards, and Meta World Peace run our test. He's definitely your height guy. He's get in your face, kind of like a Pat Beverly type of person who could make his shots. He had lots of game-winning shots. You still have Pau Gasol before he goes to the Bulls, and Dwight Howard. And that team was one of the worst records in the league. So you talk about if Chris Paul was maybe, because I think you imagine if he gets traded, I say they do sign him maybe to a bigger contract, so he does end up being part of that team, hypothetically, if they do still bring in those guys. It's like with Avengers Endgame, the time and everything. You don't know what happens if you change it. But hypothetically, they still have Chris Paul, they don't still have Steve Nash. Maybe Chris Paul runs it a little better than Steve Nash because Steve Nash was at the end of his time pretty much. So
Yeah.
that's also it. And the big three of OKC, that to me is probably one of, besides the Derrick Rose, that to me still bugs me today because I would have loved to see that
Oh
team
my God,
succeed.
that would have been like we were saying with the Bulls, that would have been another dynasty.
Oh
Because
yeah.
you look at what they've done. Durant with Golden State, Harden with the Rockets, and then West and I can't
He still
which
carried the Thunder.
yeah, he's still been doing well with yeah,
Rockets.
yeah,
He plays with
he's
James
with
Harden, yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, geez, now I can't remember anything. Jeez, all the days are rolling again. And anyways, so you think about like what could have happened there in OKC, and it's just and especially like you reflect on it now with how they played
Yeah.
and like what could have been. Like you're looking
Yes.
at like a consistent Bulls Thunder mashup
That was in the
consistently.
video. That
Yeah,
was in the video.
you would have seen that a lot.
They say
And
it would have been Miami and Bulls clashing because Carmelo would, be on the Bulls, but they say ultimately every year it would either be Chicago and OKC, a very viable dynasty for sure.
oh yeah, and you were talking about like LeBron, D Wade, Chris Bosh, like attracted to Chicago, had Rose not gotten hurt and that dynasty stick together, like they might have been able to think about going. Some of them might have gone to OKC too, and
Yeah.
obviously not all three of them would have gone there if if Harden, Westbrook, and Durant were
And,
still there.
and Kevin Durant is coming off the bench. That's something you'll never hear unless it's his first game back from the Achilles and they want him to get a standing ovation. That is the only time Kevin Durant is coming off the bench.
Or he's just gotten so bad, but he still finds a way to be a bench warmer. But
Still be
anyways,
good.
you think about it, like that had had the breakup of the big three not happened in OKC, and D Rose not gotten hurt. And I know I'm talking about that topic too, but it's just you imagine like you're imagining like the Cavs Warriors battles and how that
Yeah,
worked. I think it was I want to say 3 years in a row they were
four.
in the four they were in the finals. Why did I think it was three? But that could have happened with the Bulls and the Thunder. And you think about that, like the Warriors and Cavs dynasties. Well, okay, sure, Cavs dynasty, air quote, because they only won one title.
Uh,
That I mean, they were good. I'll give them that. They went to the finals 4 times, and they just couldn't beat the Warriors. But
well, the
the
East
Warriors,
also was really bad, but
that is
that's
true.
that's another time.
Another story. But
Yeah,
the okay, sure, the Cavs, or sure, we'll call it the Cavs successes and the Warriors dynasty. They might have not come to fruition had those two things not happened,
no,
and
because
we might not see the banners hanging and what the Chase Center now and Quicken Loans.
yeah,
I
for
mean, that might
sure.
have not happened.
Yeah, because I mean, you talk about, OKC and the Bulls running that dynasty, and Derrick Rose was definitely somebody who could have been a long-term guy to have his talent, kind of like a Russell Westbrook, be able to maintain that talent consistently for the whole decade. So you have them in the conversation, and the Bulls, I feel like definitely bring in someone from the big three of the Miami Heat. I don't know which one. Maybe
Oh yeah,
LeBron, maybe D Wade more the less, just because Carmelo's your small forward. But
yeah,
I say because OKC probably does get the best of the Bulls at a certain point, maybe causing them to sign like a guy like LeBron or Dwayne Wade. And then I feel like that motivates them to sign Kevin Durant to probably a longer deal, which ends up having him not traded. But here's also the thing about the big three that we ignore. Before James Harden was a starter, he was very, first of all, he got along with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook very well. Like those three were very tight. He was more tight with Russ, obviously. But James Harden loved coming off the bench. He was their sixth man. And I watched an interview. He was with Rachel Nichols, and he talked about how he enjoyed being a sixth man. And he felt like that was his role. He was invested in it. And when he was going to go on the court, he was going to do a fantastic job of it. And he did. But when they moved him to start, that's when it kind of, that's when it really ended. They got 4-1 on the Heat. I mean, I believe that they probably have a way better shot at winning the series if they stick with their plan of Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook starting, have them run their show with Serge Ibaka, Kendrick Perkins, and whoever their small forward is, or whoever their shooting guard is, and then you keep bringing Harden off the bench. Because when the star guys are out, Miami's going to take their star guys out probably, at least a few of them, just to be able to rest them. And because James Harden was good his last year on the Thunder. He was starting, I believe, that year they lost in the finals. That's when James Harden was looking like James Harden that we see now. He was starting to get that step back going. He was running his ISO stuff, hitting threes. And I think that six-man role was the best for him because, to be honest, yeah, it'd be great to see them all together again. Maybe not in a starting lineup, but he does not belong in a lineup like that. Like Kevin Durant, we saw it. It worked. He was able to share the spotlight with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Zaza Pachulia, as weird as to say, Andre Iguodala for sure. And Russ was able to blend well with guys like Victor Oladipo, Paul George, not well, but well enough. And he's working well with Harden. But Harden is somebody where it's just get out of the way, let me do my thing. And if he's doing that as a sixth man, because Miami's bench, it was decent. You know, guys like Shane Battier and Udonis Haslem, guys that could step in, they weren't the best. But you talk about Harden going up against those guys, that's not a hard matchup. Harden can literally take over a game. He almost won the series against the Rockets on his own after Chris Paul went down in the 2018 West Finals. So Harden on the bench and Westbrook and Durant starting, that's a dangerous team. And you like to eventually think that they move Harden starting, and that's kind of probably where it splits up a little. But for sure, if he stays a sixth man, like he wanted to, that's a whole different story. And he hated leaving OKC when he found out they traded him. He hated it. He really did. It was like Derrick Rose going to the Knicks. He did not want to leave. But he was blessed for the time he had. He knew he had to make the most of his opportunities in Houston, and he's done that. So, and sadly, the one thing we never got to see was a Kobe LeBron duel in the finals. Now, we're not talking a West Finals. We're talking an NBA Finals. Kobe on the Lakers, LeBron either representing the Cavs or Miami. First of all,
ooh,
and we talked about it, LeBron was probably his most athletic during his reign with the first reign with the Cavs. It was his most dangerous with his reign with the Heat and probably the first 2 years back with the Cavs up until the 16 finals, including it. And then he was his smartest version going from the 2017 finals on. So first of all, which LeBron do you rather see go up against Kobe? Let's get that out of the way first.
probably the early LeBron where he has more of his athleticism going against Kobe because
Yeah.
Kobe's Kobe and like Bryant's always figured out how to be able to exploit the other team and figure out their weaknesses and just start bombarding them with whatever they can't do. And and you think about LeBron and being able to use that athleticism he had when he was younger. Like I'm not throwing away what he has now. He's still able to move around the court like he's
You have to
15 years
adapt your
old.
game.
Yeah, he's been able to adapt really well in a game that's been gearing towards the younger generation.
Hmm.
But you think about it, like early on when he was able to move around, like okay, sure, a little bit better. I think that would have put up a better matchup against Bryant because sorry, but you think about everything that LeBron's done in his career, but early on, I think in that sense would have been something a little bit more challenging for Bryant,
Hmm.
if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. First of all, you can pick the era with LeBron because his self, the most athletic, dangerous, and smartest version of himself, they all played while Kobe was playing. But LeBron wasn't playing with a rookie Kobe in the 90s. He was playing with probably the most dangerous Kobe and the smartest Kobe. He wasn't playing with the most athletic, probably. So you kind of pick and choose what you want to see. I would really like to see the most dangerous versions of themselves. I like to see a mid 2000s Kobe, maybe maybe even you throw it up, or actually maybe a rookie of year 1 or 2 LeBron. So maybe an 03, 04, 05 LeBron
All
versus
right.
an 03, 04 Kobe, which is absolutely dangerous to go up against. Or you talk about maybe having I don't know how well the Lakers would do against the Miami Big Three because that is when the Lakers were starting to tank. And Kobe didn't really, I don't think the Lakers would have done well against the Cavs, like in 16 with Kyrie and Kevin. So I say you
Yeah.
get your best look at the finals between them while Kobe's at his most dangerous form in like in a 2002, 2003, 4, 5 range. And you get a look at LeBron's most maybe I mean you throw the years there for Kobe. I say an '03 to '07 Kobe versus a '03 to '07 LeBron. I say that is probably the best finals you're going to get. They were
Mm.
contending every year. The only team that stood in their way for the Lakers was the Spurs, and for the well, I mean the Cavs were in it. They lost. They lost to the Spurs multiple times. So I say, yeah, '03 to '07. You look at Lakers and Cavs. I think that's a very, very good finals matchup. And it's almost like you're getting to watch uh, a lot of people, a Jordan Magic finals again, like in 1991. Uh, a lot of people probably wanted to see, I'm trying to think. I think a Jordan versus like the Spurs with like Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. I think that would have been an interesting finals too, but that was 1999 and on. So overall, we mentioned the four. I'm going to get my fan standpoint out of the way, and you'll definitely agree with me on this. Definitely for fans, it's D Rose never getting injured. I think about it
Oh
every
yeah,
day, and my
easily.
heart aches for him. But let's throw that away. In my opinion, if we're not talking from a fan standpoint, I think it's really interesting to see what happens with OKC.
Yeah, I was gonna take a similar path. For me, it was a little bit difficult to choose between D Rose not getting hurt and OKC, but and this is why I thought that way because had Rose not gotten hurt and that big three not been broken up, I think that would have created ripple effects throughout the entire league. More so for Rose not getting hurt because that would have like we were talking about earlier, draw more attraction to Chicago, or more guys wanting to come play the Bulls, or
Yeah,
come play with the Bulls, come play, yeah, come play with the Bulls. Wow, I
yeah.
can speak today.
There.
But but you also think about it like if the two of the, I said it earlier, if the two didn't happen, if the big three wasn't broken up, Rose didn't get hurt, we would have seen similar to what the Warriors and the Cavs had earlier on last decade, where
Hmm.
they were consistently going at it in the finals. I think we would have seen that with the Bulls and the Thunder
For
easily.
sure.
So
So
it's hard
both.
for me to, yeah, it's hard for me to choose between the one because I think they both would have had similar effects throughout the league, more so for Rose. But I also think that if the big three of the Thunder wasn't broken up, they still would have attracted maybe a fourth piece to come play with them, maybe um maybe a Chris Bosh to come in,
Yeah.
maybe
Maybe
considering to play with Durant and Westbrook and Harden. I mean, maybe just to bring some more love down south. I mean, it's like we said earlier, it's a lot of what ifs. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
really top.
There's a what if. Shout out to John Molka, fellow
Yeah.
manager. So he says, what if Golden State never chokes 3-1 and OKC closes out in game 5 and they go play the Cavs in 2016.
Mm,
We get to see a not so much a rematch of OKC and Heat, obviously, but you get a rematch of Durant and LeBron in the finals. Um,
wow.
but in a tougher, without a doubt, a tougher form, I think. I say, I mean, because I mean, Kyrie, maybe not your best defender, so I think Westbrook takes care of Kyrie. I think Durant's always been Durant and LeBron, they go at each other, but I think Durant's an excellent defender on LeBron. He's definitely got the height on him to, mess up his
I agree.
shots. I say Serge Ibaka, Kevin Love's, I think, a really good matchup, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but we've seen Serge Ibaka's offensive game really develop, especially with the Raptors. And then I think Kyle Singler was their starting shooting guard that year. And then obviously Steven Adams. Steven Adams definitely, well, Steven Adams shuts down Tristan Thompson all day, in my opinion.
Oh. Oh, easily.
So honestly, maybe Thunder in 6.
Mm.
So
Yeah, just I mean Tristan Thompson. I mean, yeah, you think about it, like going up against one of some of the more top defenders. Just he's just gonna get blocked all day, like he has with the Jenners. But it's tough for me. Stop. It's tough for me to imagine Thompson being somewhat of a threat against the Thunder, considering if they were if with that 16 team, it's hard to imagine them being anywhere near as close to it's hard to imagine it being as good of a series as you had with the Warriors and the Cavs. I think it would be interesting to see Thompson
hmm
continuing to be knocked down because that's fun to see things just knocked out of people's hands.
yeah.
But I think it would have been interesting to see that between the Cavs and the Thunder.
John also had another comment. He says, wasn't Deion Waiters starting? Was he even on that OKC team? Uh, I think he was. Silly as it is, I on 2K they had Kyle Singler starting with him, I think. Maybe or you might be right about Deion Waiters. So, but anyways, I mean it's Westbrook, Durant, Adams, Ibaka show. So I do say OKC does take that series in 6, but overall you may never have to go up against that Warriors team if that team never splits up. You'd like to assume that James Harden is kept in his sixth man role as he liked it, and Billy Donovan doesn't go making him a starter, making their bench kind of weak. Because if James Harden's your main bench guy, that's very good. One guy
Yeah,
could come out, he could come in, whether it's Westbrook and him or him and Durant. It's a great. And if Ibaka and Adams, it all works out really well because then you talk about Steven Adams developing and Serge Ibaka getting really good. So, like I say, I think D Rose not getting injured and the breakup of the Thunder, I think they both have a direct effect on each other. I think they're both the reasons they don't win titles in the future, but I think they're also the reason the other might win titles in the future, just because of, possible free agents to come in. My big one's Carmelo with the Bulls. So as a fan favorite, it's D Rose never getting injured, but from a reporter's standpoint or a sports person's standpoint, you gotta love the Thunder one. So.
yeah, I know. I was trying to stay away from fan standpoint, but when I was talking about D Rose not getting injured and what it would have brought to the city
Mhm.
and the recreation of the '90s, sure, recreation of the '90s team having that kind of dynasty again, and I was talking about like Rose being the Jordan of the 2010s. I mean, and it would have created a ripple effect, especially in the free agent market, attracting guys to
Yeah.
come in. Like we might have seen the big three of the Heat, LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. They might have come play in Chicago. You don't know what would have happened if Rose didn't get hurt. And
Yeah.
I think that especially when Rose went down, that especially created waves throughout the landscape of the NBA, saying that I don't know about these Bulls. We'll see about what happens. But if he didn't get
Yeah.
hurt, if he didn't get hurt, then I think that things would be a lot different.
Yeah. When you really brought it up, because in the big three, there is no real point guard. So if all three did, hypothetical, folks, hypothetical. D Rose is your
Hypothetical.
point guard, Dwayne Wade's your shooting guard, LeBron is your small forward, Chris Bosh is your power forward, and if you have Joakim Noah at center, like I say, you always need someone like that has that bad boy Pistons mentality to absolutely just
I
get in your
forgot
face
about that. I
and
forgot
hate
about
you.
that.
Now, granted, Joakim Noah had very nice colorful vocabulary for LeBron. Many times he has used very colorful finger gestures for LeBron. So they have had it out. So that's where I say LeBron's probably the questionable to play with Noah. But if those three do start with Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose, that brings back a Bulls dynasty, in my opinion. You cannot stop that because you
Ooh.
assume the bench still stays intact because none of those guys were crazy expensive with the salary cap if you look at it. CJ Watson, Ronnie Brewer, Kyle Korver, Taj Gibson, Kurt Thomas. Not the most expensive of a lineup. Keith Bogans, too. Not crazy. Brian Scalabrine, you got to have your label like an Alex Caruso on your team. So if those big three do team up, it's very, very hypothetical. The odds of it happening are 0.01%. So it'd be really awesome to see. But
Another topic. What if Rondo didn't get injured when he was on the Bulls during the playoff run?
oh, we talked about that
We
last
talked
time.
about that.
We talked
Yeah.
about that last time, but our broadcast did get shut down. So because it
Yeah,
was goofy.
but so we'll summarize it. We did think that the Bulls would beat the Celtics.
Yeah, and the Bulls do want to compete with the Cavs in the East Finals. We did say they would. Well, I don't know if we said it, but I agree they take down the Hawks in the semis, and
Yeah.
the Cavs. That's a tough challenge, but I don't
Yeah,
say they beat the Warriors. Don't beat the Warriors.
no, not
Don't beat the
they.
Warriors.
I do remember saying though that I don't remember who said it, but one of us said that they might have taken the Cavs to 6 or 7 games in that series if
In the
Rondo
East
didn't get hurt.
Finals.
Yeah, if Rondo didn't get hurt.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was the Wizards. So that's a little iffy because Beal and Gortat and Wall.
Well, you still
That
beat
is,
the number one seed in the East though, in the Celtics.
I mean, 16 seed beat the 1 seed in the tournament, UMBC, but then they didn't get past the 8. So,
I mean, you never know. I like optimism.
yeah, good show, man.
Yeah, this was good. We have McMaster and the mic premiering in about 45 minutes. We were advertising it before we started our fourth topic, but I was able to get a little bit of a sneak peek of it. It is worth watching for whoever's still on this. But if you
Is
do
it sports
watch it,
talk?
it's his own thing. So McMaster's doing it himself. He recorded it all. He's not doing what we're doing where we're streaming it like on here and then posting it later. He sent it in earlier today to us at NDMC, and episode 1's going up in about 45 minutes. So interested in watching another show that our groups put together. It's worth watching. McMaster knows what he's talking about. He's been
Sure.
renowned throughout the ND community, even further beyond that, for knowing what he's talking about. So that should be interesting. I think we're gonna do another show Thursday. That's the hope.
I was gonna ask you to do one Saturday, but I was too tired.
Yeah, it was a little tough Easter weekend. Easter weekend was rough.
I was gonna call you and ask to do like best Easter moments of sports. Sad is to say for a Bulls fan, Carmelo's heart-daggering threes to send on Easter. The Bulls were trying to clinch the number 1. They eventually did. The year Rose got hurt. They were trying to clinch the 1 seed, I think, and the Knicks were fighting for playoff hopes. I think if they lost that game, they'd be out. And the Bulls were up by 3 with time winding down. Carmelo hits a fadeaway 3 in Dang's face, sends it to OT. D Rose misses 2 free throws in OT. Bulls are up by 2. Carmelo runs down the court, hits another 3. Bulls lose on Easter, one of my worst Easters ever. But it happens. So that's another discussion. But Dan, great show.
Yeah, this was a good show. Hopefully
And
technology decides to work with us this time. Our
for sure.
last one, our technology decided to throw us in the doghouse. First one,
We had a good one last time too. We had Miracle on Ice.
Yeah, that was a good one. We might filter in those topics in our next couple of shows. Let's hope. And then maybe our next show or the show after that, we'll talk a little more draft because the draft's coming up for the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
It should be interesting with it going virtual.
We should do a live stream of the draft. Like we should broadcast it while the draft's going on.
Oh yeah, we can digest it too. Yeah. It's an idea, so we'll keep everyone posted on that.
Yeah.
All right, so good show, man.
See you, man. Good show.
All right.